आजको प्रेजेन्टेसनको टाइटल चाहिँ एट द क्रसरोड्स अफ आर्ट आर्किटेक्चर एन्ड हेरिटेज रिहाउसिङ द इटुम बाहा पेन्टिङ्स। आज स्पिकर चाहिँ अजाद थापा, जो इकोमस के भन्छ प्रोनाउन्सिएसन त्यस्तो हो, आइकोमस नेपाल र ट्रेजर केयरटेकर ट्रेनीसँग पनि आबद्ध हुनुहुन्छ। आजादजीको पुरानो के अरे अलि लामो introduction चाहिँ he got his bachelor's degree in architecture from Kathmandu Engineering College and then a master's degree in World Heritage Studies from Brandenburg University of Technology in Germany. He has worked internationally across museums, research institutions and heritage organizations. He developed audience-centered text, digital media and interactive experiences at the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles to enhance visitor engagement and accessibility. In Nepal, he managed pop-up exhibitions at Kathmandu Art House and contributed to the conservation of earthquake-damaged temples at Pashupati. His architectural work with Architecture Sans Frontiers, Nepal focused on earthquake-resilient design for marginalized communities. Beyond practice, he has engaged in research and policy dialogue, including serving as rapporteur for the ICOMOS. We co-sponsored international meetings on culture, heritage, and climate change. He's also reviewed nominations for the World Monuments Watch and participated in European Heritage Volunteer Programs. As a presentation, he'll be speaking in English. Pachiko discussion thing, we can do it in English and Nepali combined. Azadji, will probably speak for about 45 minutes.
Thank you everybody for making the time. Before I begin my presentation, there was few mistakes on the abstract. So it was supposed to be Nepal mandala as Maurice was intended, and the dimensions of the painting is off by 20 centimeters in each direction, which I have reformed in my presentation. So the topic, as you know, is as at the crossroads of art, architecture, and heritage, rehousing the Itum Baha powers. So, few acknowledgements. Thank you, Martin Chautari, for giving me the platform to speak about art and heritage. And people from Itum Baha, the Itum Baha Conservation Society, for deeming me worthy to handle their precious artifacts. I cannot forget Caretaker training and their expertise. Anne Shaftel and Patricia Smithen, they were with me all through the obstacles I faced during the rehousing chapter and also verse design, who helped me navigate the architectural details, financial details, and legal aspects of the rehousing. So before jumping into the meat of the presentation, I want to orient what is art, what is architecture, and what is heritage. So defining art would be very vague, so due to the time constraint, I'm focusing and jumping directly into Pauva. So Pauva is deeply rooted in Vajrayana ritual practice, and it originated as a tool for sadhana or meditation. It's a highly revered form of spiritual expression, and it distinguishes itself from Thankas. They are known for intricate detail and vivid storytelling, and their sacred presence in Nepal's Mahaviharas and temples. We will find it about during the presentations. So some characters of Pauvas are that they are 2D. A prominent central deity surrounds the smaller figures, and traditional motifs and additional deities associated with the central figure adorn the negative spaces. However, there is a lack of authoritative account to characterize Pauva, and even though it has all those discernible features, it might not be a Pauva because it must adhere to the lineage of artistic traditions, literatures, and iconography. Also directly jumping into Baha, which Mary Schlossers, she defines it as monastery quadrangles, and in my abstract I have written Courtyard monasteries, which are akin to each other. So they are usually 2 or 3 story courtyards, and they are relatively inconspicuous. You might not notice them as you walk by, as they are hemmed in the urban landscape. The floors are divided into different rooms overlooking the courtyard, and the special thing about the Newari architecture is that the house of the commoner or the king, and even the monastic courtyards, they are morphologically akin to each other, and they use the elemental brick and wood that define Newari style. However, their functional use differs, and Baha are used for teaching, preaching epics, and the prime reason was for its construction was to shelter the visiting monks and provide them food. Itum Baha, the Baha in question, the official Sanskrit name would be Bhaskar Deva Sanskrita Kesandakita Paravarta Mahavihar, and it stands as a bedrock of Buddhism. And it is supposed to exist more than 800 years. Some documents claim that its origin goes further back. It has survived earthquakes, invasion, and political upheavals. That's why it has retained its original architecture for this long. However, it has some special interest. The wood carvings of Itum Baha are exquisite, and the legend of its origin is very interesting. Itum Baha is literally like an oasis in the middle of the hustle and bustle of the Kathmandu Valley. And my idea is echoed by Niels Gustav, who writes, entering the courtyard, one experiences a world of its own. Kundamani Dixit in his article at Nepali Times writes, centuries of history speak from the corners, cobblestones are polished by the feet of ages, the bricks are eroded with time, choices encrusted with vermilion dot the courtyard. And Itum Baha took a new step in 2023. It became a monastery museum, and it was a step towards a new museum typology. During my research, I found that only 2 monastery museums exist. One is Itum Baha, of course, and another one exists in Austria. It's a Benedictine monastery. So the vision of Itum Baha Museum is to safeguard Newar Buddhist teachings, rituals, and artistic traditions. You can experience some meditation sessions and go through the artifacts. And there are seasonal festivals and rituals associated with Itum Baha that makes it not a dead museum, it's a living museum and a living heritage site. Legacy is to preserve Kathmandu's vanishing Vajrayana Buddhist legacy, fostering intergenerational learning and spiritual resilience. Well, it's not easy with heritage. It can mean nothing and everything as put forth by this quote from different scholars of heritage. But during my research for my master's thesis, I think the best definition put forward was by Peter Howard, who says that heritage can be regarded as anything that someone wishes to conserve or to collect and pass on to the future generations. So this is the main topic we're delving into. It's the journey or the sojourn of the Itum Baha powers. And I have created this story arc in the form of timeline. And we're gonna go through the bits and pieces. Also, please notice the pin that's gonna shift according to the topic we are going to delve into. So first, the origin. So this is one of the paintings, portrait of Gawan Simbara with his wife. So back at the States, while working for the museum, I managed to gain a craft of presenting some curatorial text in more interpretive format. So I'm gonna read. And while I read, please feel free to look around the painting and see the features, the points of interest, as we call it. So the most monumental painting of its type, the portrait of Gawan Simbara with his wives, exhibits an innovative composition of figures depicting the donor as the protagonist, a feature unprecedented in either Nepalese or Tibetan paintings. 4 lines of bilingual inscription below the set of 5 Hindu deities identify the man as the military governor of Dolakha, Gawan Simbara. Its twin appearing wives, Ashtayani Lakshmi, who is larger in scale, and Jivanta appear on the other side of the axis. While a black cat crawls to the governor, probably the only depiction of cat in Nepalese painting, he holds a palm in his right hand. While his second wife is holding flowers, his first wife offers him more palm. With the heads turned in a 3/4 profile, The figures sit on top of multi-leaf lotus with sprouting decorative vines. The portraits are placed against a poinsettia red background with various floating luxury articles. A cloth canopy hangs above the subject, adorned with elegantly patterned, intensely colored dresses. On either side are metal brackets surmounted by birds from which cases with live parrots are suspended. The painting was made to provide Gohan Sim's descendants with a family portrait for the ritual of ancestor worship. Created between 1450 to 74 by the finest artist duo of Adayaraja Puna and Udayarama Puna, it predates Mughal and Rajput paintings. The artist reversed the traditional disposition of the spaces within the canvas by allowing portraits to take the center stage, while deities are depicted in limited space. The devotional religious undertones are still maintained through inscriptions and iconography. So these are taken from two books. One article was by Gautam Vajracharya in Orientations, and one is from Himalayan and Aesthetic Adventure written by Dr. Pratap, which we are going to talk about later. The next is of Chintamani Lokeshwara in Tara. Wish-fulfilling tree, Kalpa Vriksha, with its rich array of flora and gems, sheds its flowers against a red background. Standing on the lotus leaf are bodhisattvas, Chintamani Lokeshwara and his consort Tara, busy plucking gems from the tree and distributing them to three seekers of alms. The imposing white figure of Chintamani Lokeshwara, wearing a dhoti, is depicted in a contrapostal position, while Tara, adorned in the local costume, doesn't assume her characteristic green or white complexion. In the vibrant blue sky above, two celestial couples arrive on cloud chariots with garlands and offerings. The composition also depicts the red Amitabha Buddha, the principal Buddha associated with Lokeshwara, in a centrally elevated position. Chintamani Lokeshwara is a form of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshwara, meaning wish-fulfilling gem, affirming his link with the tree. And the final one, this 1704 Pauva is the replacement of the decayed original at the Itum Baha monastery. The pictorial narrative is difficult to discern from the inscriptions alone. For instance, the inscription refers to the story where the hallowed regal male, Kesab Chandra, the monastery's founder, confronts a demon, more likely a nature spirit of Guru Mappa. The characters of Kesab Chandra and Guru Mappa are linked with the original legend of Itum Baha. In the painting, however, four demons face the royal figure. Following the painting's repatriation, the community locals interpret it as Kesh Chandra beholding the presence of four Bhairabs. Possibly due to the wrath or the distraction created by the dancing couple, the consort of the king looks away from the scene. Above the right-hand corner is a deity approaching the scene in a chariot enveloped by floating clouds. Whereas on the top left corner is a column supporting the statue of monkey god Hanuman, which, as the inscription suggests, is the representation of dead king Bhaskara Malla. At the bottom left, a man riding a winged lion turns back to witness the vision. The richly decorated scrolling arch gateway, rendered in half, is inhabited by lively celestial creatures topped with Kirtimukha, or the glory face. So with the photo proofs, so Chinya Tamrakar took the photos of these paintings in the monsoon of 1978, which helped in its ultimate return. And there is a video in YouTube you can probably go and watch. So the photos are the black and white photos depicted at the bottom of the exhibition panel. So the loss. So on September 14, 1980, three masterwork Pauva paintings were lost from Itum Baha in a major theft. It was discovered next day by priests and caretakers who found the walls that protected the paintings was wrecked. As the crown jewels of Newari tradition, Their loss was a profound cultural and spiritual blow to the community. Despite immediate reports to police, the Department of Archaeology, and the costumes, the paintings vanished without a trace. So in the picture, you can see the famous Baba artist Lok Chitrakar, who is holding his initial sketches of Chintamani Lokesar, which he drew from his memory after it was lost. And recently, like few months back, there was an exhibition by National Art Council which showcased the Chintamani Lokesar, the original one printed at high copy, and Lok Chitrakar's rendition of Chintamani Lokesar at Thapa. The police report. So, despite the crime being reported to police, to Nepal's Department of Archaeology and Customs, the official report disappeared following a suspicious fire at the police station. Community members, however, never ceased efforts to locate and recover the artworks. The resurfacing. So, 2003, a Chicago-based exhibition called Himalayas and Aesthetic Adventure, and its accompanying catalog showed the paintings for the first time after its disappearance, and I have even indicated the page number where it appears in the catalog. But there were some provenance concerns over it. The exhibit was supposed to move to Smithsonian's Sackler Gallery, but the curators flagged them, questioning its ownership, and chose not to display them. However, we have to thank Dr. Pratap for his exhibition catalog, which featured full-color images and captions of the paintings, which became a key piece of evidence that later proved vital for the identification and recovery. Also, the Chimia Tamrakar's photo from 1978 was crucial for its repatriation. So in 2006, a letter was submitted to the Department of Antiques Archaeology that the painting was stolen and it was not sold. Further investigations coordinated by Nepal's Heritage Recovery Campaign involved collaboration with heritage experts, local witnesses, and legal authorities in New York. And in March 4, 2025, it arrived at the custom at Tribhuvan International Airport, along with 17 other artifacts. And again, my acknowledgements to Neva Guthi of New York, who managed to safely transport the paintings halfway across the world. So that's the painting at the TIA. And there was a press conference held by Department of Archaeology on 30th of April 2025, and few established dignitaries were invited. However, it was received as such, and I'm going to let you read what is on the screen. However, so this set of party article writes that the Paula, which are 500 years old, but the image is of elbow resting upon it. Then we move to the handover ceremony. Pragyadai right here is on the screen. And it was handed over to him by the Department of Archaeology, and it was a ceremony held at National Museum of Nepal. Some press covers about that, which writes that the historic Paua has returned to its rightful place, and it could represent the whole Asia. You can see the community involvement. It was well received. The whole community was there. The auditorium was packed, and The one concern was that the day before it was supposed to be handed over to the community, we faced a major logistical challenge. How to transport it from the National Museum Nepal to Itum Baha. I have an architecture degree. We have some tubes we used to roll our drawings, but the Pauva's sheer monumental scale didn't allow. And we had to come up with some improvisations. So I contacted Azad of Caretaker training and she suggested we use some PVC pipes that are used in constructions. So two diameters, one to roll them and the second one to cover above them, and use a cotton cloth to wrap them around so that the pipe is not in direct contact with the painting layers. And it was a very celebrated event with music, and even when the Pauwas were entering Itum Baha for the first time, it was a really historic moment, and the carriers were, and even the Pauwas were put on some tika and vermilion, and we celebrated it with a big feast. So the traditional display. So in Mewar calendar, the 10th month, it's the Gunla Parva, and it's celebrated, it's considered the holiest month. And during that time, monasteries and some private residences, they display their artworks, their artifacts and their heritage assets. So that is called Bahi Vegu. And in the event of that, Itum Baha decided to display the paintings. And this display happened after 45 years. So this event is important because falling during the monsoon period, the paintings were displayed. So the photographs taken by Jinia Tanrakar was done during Bahi Vegu. It was stolen after it was displayed during the Gunla festival or Bahi Vegu, and it was finally displayed after 45 years in the occasion of Bahi Vegu. Not only that, since Itum Baha is a museum, it has other artifacts. The special mention goes to the gold-written manuscripts of Pragya Paramita, as you can see on the screen. And this was also covered by some of the news portals. And the comment on the bottom says that it should be presented in a better manner, with more temperature control and with glass cases, but it was only a temporary display for fortnight. And the community and I was there. We did our best to protect it against moisture. So there are certain barriers between the paintings, and the pressure bar, which is not thumb pins, kind of clamped the painting together, and it was not hampering painting in any ways. Even the pine wood was treated with linseed oil and left to dry. And during the night, it was covered. So during the festival also, it was very well taken care of. The storage. So storage and safekeeping went hand in hand. So it's the same method we used to safekeep and store the paintings. So, but we had to improvise here again. So as you can see in the picture, the community used the plastic flower pots so that the rats or vermins don't enter, and it was wrapped with plastic food wrap. So here is the scene that after the festival was over, delicately we took it out of the display, covered it with the cotton cloth, which was washed several times with hot water and left it dry so that it doesn't create any chemical disturbances to the painting layer. And we rolled it with our PVC pipes, secured it with the bigger diameter PVC pipe, and sealed it kind of with the flower pots. So it was an act of improvisation. So the next thing is we are planning the exhibit, but there are some forthcoming plans. And together with Verse Design, Caretaker training, and with Itum Baha, we are designing some architectural adaptations which focuses on making the environment where it's going to be displayed, which is the first floor at the eastern wing of Itum Baha, and we are trying to seal the windows and the entries, provide with the air conditioning unit, and basically make the environment more temperature, so we could regulate temperature and the relative humidity that doesn't hamper the paintings. And we also have some conceptual designs for the casing and mounting, which are more secured and which doesn't hamper paintings in any ways. And this is the final rendering that what it might look like. Also, addressing community and security needs, we are trying to make a guardhouse that correlates with the traditional architectural vocabulary of the space. So that was the entire timeline. And I asked Anne Shaftel, she has been working with Pauwas and Thangkas for more than 50 years. So what would be the appropriate way to store it? So we did our best with the resources we had, with the time and resources we have, but what would be the appropriate way or the best way to handle and store the Pauwas? So these are her slides. One of the things is that it's not recommended to roll and unroll it over and over again, which causes cracks, paint loss, and tears fabric. We should avoid pulling or stretching because it can rip the paints, and we need actually to store it on flat surfaces as such. And we have to handle it gently, we need not to clean it, and we can preserve it through digital copies. So in this next slide, the conservators are discussing what would be the appropriate way to roll it, and they kind of decided that laying it flat on the ground is the most, not on the ground, flat horizontally would be the best way. Some more examples of that, and storing on racks as such, which can be built technically, and she also suggested use of the cotton cloth for storage, which is washed several times in very hot water and is hung in the sun to dry. Here is Anne. So this is my concluding slide, and I've written in my abstract as well the antinomies or the paradoxes, which are theft versus restitution, the sacred object versus the commodity, the $2.2 million valuation, its ritual function and its conservation needs, repatriation and whether or not we are prepared for it, historical secularism and public engagement, museum versus monastery, and appropriate method versus the best practices. Thank you. These are the references.
Azadjiलाई धन्यवाद. अब हाम्रो पालो to ask him questions or comments, or if you happen to know more details about what he's presented, even share them. I don't know. त्यो रिकभरीको अलिकति डिटेल्स अलि बढी डिटेल्स भन्न मिल्थ्यो कि भनेको त्यो जुन एक्जिबिसनको क्याटलगमा देखेपछि between then and the time it actually landed back in Kathmandu.
Yeah,
I think you kind of didn't really say much regarding what happened.
So it was like a long battle, like 2003, 2025, using maths, more than 2 decades, and a lot of to and fro exchange of communications. I think the authorities legal authorities at New York were involved as well. So it was a long battle, I'd say, and the community really fought to kill it.
So why did it take so long, like 22 years, right? So why did it take so long? Like, where was the issue? Was it from the other side, or was it from our government? Was it from like Itum Baha side? Where was the actual problem which
So,
like made us wait 22 years?
so if I have an asset worth $2.2 million, would I easily give it back?
No.
So I think that's
So they, by they I mean, let's say the American side, they're more reluctant in giving it back to us.
yeah, and also there's the legal procedure here does take time as well.
यो स्टोरेजको लागि घोषणा के
Storage is for
त्यो
future.
त काम चलाउँछ नि त सानो बनाउन सक्यो
So the future plan is we're going to display. This is how it's going to be stored. So it's going to be stored in an environmentally controlled, temperature controlled environment, and even the display cases, it's designed so that it's more stable. Sure. I can send it to you.
जस्तो हजुरले अब यत्रो फोर्ड गरिरहनु भएको भने गभर्मेन्टको साइडबाट जब यसलाई प्रिजर्भ गरेर फर्दर अगाडि लाने जस्तो इनिसिएटिभहरू चाहिँ केही छ
भइरहेको थियो जेनजी प्रोटेस्ट सो त्यो प्रोटेस्टको 9th-मा चाहिँ कम्युनिटी वेयर अबाउट टु मिट विथ डेपुटी मेयर बट द प्रोटेस्ट काइन्ड अफ स्टल्ड एभ्रिथिङ
धन्यवाद आजादजीलाई यस्तो राम्रो कार्य गर्नुभएकोमा मैले पनि एउटा सानो यो अध्ययन गरेको थिएँ होइन यो नेपाल मण्डलसँग जोडिएको सुनन्दरको इतिहास भन्ने पुस्तक र हजुरको यो इतुम बहाको यो पौवाहरूको बारेमा चाहिँ जान्न पाउँदा चाहिँ धेरै नै खुसी लाग्यो र हजुरले यो इतुम बहामा रहेका पौवाहरूको यो एन्थ्रोपोलोजिकली त्यसमा चाहिँ त्यसले दिन खोजेको सन्देशहरू त्यो पौवामा पुगेका चाहिँ त्यो आर्टले चाहिँ के सन्देश दिन खोजेको हो र त्यो कुन परिवेशलाई चाहिँ इङ्गित गर्न खोजेको त्यस विषयमा कुनै के अध्ययन गर्नु भएको छ त्यो
यस्तो छ अब इट वाज नट नेपालमा थिएन नि त यो हामीले पनि यही साल 2025मा हामीले देख्यौँ अनि यो पौवाको सिग्निफिकेन्स इज भेरी मच सिग्निफिकेन्ट किनभने युजली नेपाली पौवाहरूमा चाहिँ कलाकारहरूको नाम हुँदैन अनि कमल सिंह बारोको यो पेन्टिङमा चाहिँ हामीले देख्न सक्छौँ उदयराज पुन र अजयराज पुनको नाम छ अनि 1450मा डेट भएको छ एन्थ्रोपोलोजिकली देयर इज सो मच टु रिसर्च त्यो लग्जरी आइटम्सहरू जुन पछाडि मात्र छ नि जस्तै त्यहाँ ट्रेडिसनल ऐना छ ट्रेडिसनल ज्वेलरी बक्सहरू छ त्यसको बारेमा हामीले धेरै कुरा रिसर्च गर्न सक्छौँ त्यहाँको त्यति बेलाको फ्यासन क्लोदिङ अनि वी कुड नाउ क्लियरली स्टेट नेपालमा पाट खाने चलन 1450 देखि रहेछ भनेर वी वेन्ट फर्दर ब्याक सो देयर इज lot to research to this painting and art historically is very significant अनि so yeah the avenue open छ रिसर्च भइसकेको छैन वी आर नाउ मोर इन केमा लागि परेको छौँ भने चाहिँ सेफ्टी अब यसलाई कसरी राखेर कसरी डिस्प्ले गर्ने
Yes, please.
म कन्फ्युज भएको पनि छ तपाईँले यो पेन्टिङ चाहिँ नेपालमा ल्यानु भइसकेपछि यो पेन्टिङ चाहिँ इतुम बाहाले नै राख्ने कि नेसनल म्युजियममा भन्ने त्यो कुरामा नि स्ट्रगल भएको
थोरै टाइममा स्ट्रगल भएको हो बट वाट आई फिल अनि गभर्मेन्ट एन्टिटीले पनि त्यही फिल भयो इट बिलोङ्स टु द कम्युनिटी वी सुड गिभ देम ब्याक सो इट्स विथ द कम्युनिटी
कम्युनिटी भनेको
इतुम बाहा
होइन यस्तो भयो कि जस्तो दुईवटा कुरा भयो बोलचालीको भाषामा त हामी कम्युनिटी भन्ने शब्द यति धेरै युज गर्छौँ नि इट क्यान मिन जस्ट अबाउट एनिथिङ तर यो स्पेसिफिक केसमा चाहिँ कम्युनिटी भनेको को भनेर भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ आई मिन
त्यो
लेट मी जस्ट फिनिश माई मम ग्रु अप राइट इन फ्रन्ट अफ द बाज मेन entrance. So there was one photo where you show that basically the repatriation हुँदाखेरि जुन म्युजिक बजाउँदै मान्छेहरू जो आउँदैछ नि भित्र बालभित्र आउँदैछ नि द हाउस द्याट यु क्यान सी इन द ब्याकग्राउन्ड इज एक्चुअली द हाउस वेयर माई मदर ग्रो अप ओके सो माई ओन मेमोरिज अफ इटुम बाल इज नट त्यो कुन चाहिँ छ भन्दाखेरि आई मिन 55 years ago if you I didn't know that these paintings actually were in location at that time well as a kid I wouldn't have expected to know that त्यो एउटा कुरा भयो हैन दोस्रो कुरा त्यो बालको फिजिकल कन्डिसन हेर्दाखेरि त्यति बेला चाहिँ I think it will be safe if my memory serves me right to say that there were other bals in the 1 square kilometer from Itum Bal which were in better shape than Itum Bal. यी सबै मैले भन्दाखेरिको the point I'm trying to suggest is that एनालिटिकली हामीले कम्युनिटी भन्ने शब्द युज गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ we have to be more specific. लेम्यान टर्म्समा त त्यसलाई हामीले जे माने दिन मन लाग्यो त्यही दिन मिल्छ त्यहाँ तपाईँले अहिले युज गरिरहँदाखेरि चाहिँ आजको प्रेजेन्टेसनमा गिभन द कन्टेक्स्ट इन विच यु बिन इन्भल्भ इन दिस प्रोसेस कम्युनिटी को हो कि किनभने देयर इज अनदर पार्ट
राइट सो
55 years ago जो कम्युनिटी मेम्बर भन्न मिल्थ्यो नि lot of them actually don't live there anymore. I would guess.
You would guess. So when I say community, Itum Baha community मैले भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ Itum Baha Conservation Society त्यसको अफिसियल संस्कृत नेम प्राज्ञदायी के होला केश चन्द्र
महावीर कन्जर्भेसन सोसाइटी
अनि प्राज्ञदायी चाहिँ कम्युनिटीको नयाँ गुठी पनि रोल हुन्छ सो आई मेन्ट द्याट
तपाईलाई पनि के थप्न मन छ कि ल अरु कसैलाई के सोध्नु मन छ
मैले सुनेसम्म चाहिँ यो इटुम बाहा भने चाहिँ त्यो तीनटा ताराहरू छ नि त्यो ताराहरूको लागि बढी फेमस सुनेको थिएँ मैले अनि अस्ति इन्द्र जात्राको बेला म हेर्न पनि गएको थिएँ आई वाज नट अवेर अफ त्यो म्युजियम चाहिँ देखेको थियो बन्द भइसकेको थियो म जाँदाखेरि 3-4 बजीतिर गएको थिएँ होइन तर त्यहाँभित्र यस्तो चिजहरू छन् भन्ने चाहिँ अवेर थिएन अब फेरि जाँदाखेरि हेर्नु
You talked about this antinomies between the monastery and the museum and this new type of museum and how works the balance between the monastic activity and the museum activity, how for this Pope as for example what is the priority to display them or to use them for the monastery or is displaying them serve the monastic life?
So yeah, it's a very good question. So Itum Baha is a monastery museum. However, the daily ritual activities of monastery continues till date, and the museum doesn't hamper monastery in any way, or vice versa. Even like when Pragadaya was giving me a tour, so there are like accessing items within the museum, but they are used for the ritualistic purpose and they are kept back for display. What museum does is to better document them and make public more aware. And you might need to pay to visit the museum, but entering the monastery it doesn't cost anything. And regarding a question about the displaying of the pauvas, so it being a monastic museum kind of helps in a lot of ways.
भनेको यो पौवाहरू डिस्प्ले गर्ने र अरू जुन अब इन्द्र जात्राको बेला विभिन्न भैरवहरूको पनि डिस्प्ले हुन्छ नि होइन पब्लिक डिस्प्ले अराउन्ड द्याट एरिया यो चाहिँ कोइन्साइडै गर्छ
त्यो वैद्य ब्रेगो भन्ने फेस्टिभलमा चाहिँ कोइन्साइड गर्छ
जस्तो अब यो आर्टहरू हराउने चाहिँ कसरी चाहिँ पहिले चाहिँ कसरी हराइरहेको छ तपाईँहरूको यो लाइफहरू ठाउँमा त्यो चाहिँ अलिकति जस्तो अब कोही मान्छेको संरक्षणमा थियो होला त्यो त एउटा गोठीको संरक्षणमा केको संरक्षण थियो कसरी गइरहेको छ त्यो चाहिँ पहिला यो त्यसको चाहिँ यहाँ काठमाडौँको आर्टहरू धेरै बाहिर गइरहेछ भन्ने त्यो चाहिँ त्यसको अलिकति
So, त्यसको बारेमा lot of books have been written. Lansing Bangladesh Stolen Images of Nepal. Jürgen Schickko, I think the book is Gods Are Leaving Their Country. भनेर छ के अरे. So, यो चाहिँ 60s, 70s, 80s मा चाहिँ धेरै देखिएको थियो हैन. त्यो लजहरू इन्फोर्स पनि थिएन. एन्सियन्ट मोनुमेन्ट्स एक्ट भनेर थियो जसले चाहिँ प्रोहिबिट गर्थ्यो तर यो केसमा पनि पुलिस रिपोर्ट हराउनु चलेर जानु त्यो कस्टम्समा यत्रो मोनुमेन्टल पेन्टिङ नदेख्नु हैन. सो इट्स भेरी के भन्ने कि सिनिस्टर अलिकति क्लाउडी र मिस्टिरियस रूपमा हराइरहेछ. अनि ह्याभिङ सेड द्याट तर सबै आर्टहरू चाहिँ इलिगली गएको पनि छैन. सम वेयर गन लिगली अनि राइट प्रोभेनान्सहरूमा छ है. तर अल जजिराको एउटा राम्रो डकुमेन्ट्री छ नेपाल अ ग्रेट वन्डर भन्ने. त्यसमा चाहिँ क्लियरली भनेको छ कि अब देयर आर सम आर्ट हाउसेस सेल इट टु सम बायर इन ब्याक मार्केट्स बेसिकली.
यो हराउनेमा सोच्यो भने चाहिँ कुनको दशकमा चाहिँ एकदम बढी आर्टहरू हराएको जस्तो देखिन्छ. मैले किन सोधेको भने नेपालमा राष्ट्रवादको कुरा र यो आर्ट हराउने एकैचोटि भनेको हामीले कसरी बुझ्ने भने
मलाई जहाँसम्म लाग्छ 1970 मा चाहिँ युनेस्को कन्भेन्सन छ जसले चाहिँ त्यो इलिसिट ट्राफिकिङहरू चाहिँ प्रतिबन्ध लगायो. त्यो भएपछि चाहिँ अलिकति कम भएको जस्तो देखिन्छ. तर त्योभन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ कुनै इन्टरनेसनल रेगुलेसन्सहरू नै थिएन. त्यो आर्टहरू मजासँग इट कुड ट्राभल त्यो मुभेबल अब्जेक्ट्सहरू. सो आई थिङ्क प्रायर टु 70s अलिक बढी भयो जस्तो देखिन्छ.
मैले एउटा क्विकली एड गरेँ के अरे म टेक्नोलोजीको स्टुडेन्ट भएको कारणले गर्दा टेक साइडबाट भएको कारणले गर्दा किन हामी 1970s 80को कुरा गर्दैछौँ ग्राउन्ड भयो त्यो टाइम फ्रेममा भनेपछि टेक्नोलोजी एडभान्स थिएन त्यो बेला. स्टिल लाइक छँदै थिएन भनौँ न कम्पेयर गर्ने भने. सो इज इट बिकज अफ टेक्नोलोजी किनभने त्यो बेलामा सोसियल मिडियाहरू केही पनि थिएन. कन्सिडरिङ नेपालको सोसाइटी लाइक टेक केही पनि थिएन. लाइक नट मेनी पिपल न्यू वाट वाज अराउन्ड होइन. जस्तै अब फर इक्जाम्पल इतुम बाहा सोसाइटीलाई त्यो पेन्टिङको बारेमा थाहा थियो भने मेबी लाइक फ्यु किलोमिटर्स अवे अरू कसैलाई पनि त्यसको बारेमा थाहा हुनसक्छ होइन. सो द्याट इतुम बाहा सोसाइटीलाई अथवा इफ आम रङ होइन युजिङ द्याट वर्ड तर त्यो कम्युनिटीलाई त्यसको बारेमा थाहा थियो अरूलाई थाहा थिएन. लाइक टेक्नोलोजी अभियसली थिएन त्यो बेलामा. सो वाज इट बिकज there were only limited number of people that knew about it. So maybe let's say busबाट प्लेनबाट पनि त्यो बाहिर लाँदाखेरि like no one knew what other people were taking up होइन. त्यो अब लाँदा एयरपोर्टबाट जस्तै मैले लगेँ भने पनि एयरपोर्टमा त्यो के हुने थाहा छैन भने अभियसली they'll take it out. So was it because of that? And अहिलेको केसमा चाहिँ टेक्नोलोजी आइसकेको केसमा is there any way we may be able to look into the future जस्तै सबै नेपालमा भएको यो जति पनि यस्तो पेन्टिङहरू छ जति पनि आर्टिफ्याक्ट्सहरू छ त्यसलाई एउटा सेन्ट्रलाइज वेयरहाउस सेन्ट्रलाइज डेटाबेस जस्तो बनाएर त्यहाँ ट्र्याक गरेर राख्न सकिन्छ कि सकिँदैन. अथवा लेट्स से ट्र्याक इट विथ जिपिएस एभ्री सिङ्गल प्रिसियस आर्टिफ्याक्ट्सहरूलाई जिपिएस युज गरेर ट्र्याक गर्न मिल्छ कि मिल्दैन. सो द्याट इफ इट पासेस थ्रु एयरपोर्ट सेक्युरिटी एयरपोर्ट कस्टम्स एनिथिङ लाइक द्याट वी विल बी एबल टु स्टप इट.
Yes, social media and technology definitely has helped a lot, especially awareness ko case ma. एउटा anonymous entity is Lost Arts of Nepal. They do this awareness thing that this auction is selling this and like it belongs to Nepal kind of thing. So yes, definitely त्यो पछि Interpol हरूले पनि अलिकति एडभान्स भएर चाहिँ they could track it much better than they could do before. So yes, technology does come in aid, and if we are smart, we have to use them to track it, locate it, and be prepared to bring it back. I would say bring it back मात्र भनेर हुँदैन. We have to be prepared. नेपालले चाहिँ as a statement दिनुपर्छ कि that we are ready to receive our artworks back. So please.
मेरो एउटा सानो जिज्ञासा मात्र यसरी हराउँदा चाहिँ भेटिने ठाउँहरू चाहिँ निश्चित लोकेसन हो कि जहाँ पनि हो होइन जस्तो यहाँ काठमाडौँको सर्टेन प्रकारको आर्टहरू चाहिँ हरायो भने अथवा हराउने जुन भेटिने क्रम चाहिँ कुन ठाउँ बढी हो भने युएसए अथवा युरोप होइन त्यस्तो कुनै स्ट्रक्चरल प्रकारको सङ्केतहरू छ कि भनौँ न भनेको नेपालबाट यस्तो प्रकारको हरायो भने चाहिँ त्यो भेटिने सम्भावना त्यहाँ छ भन्ने यसरी केही त्यस्तो छ कि अनि हामीले अन्य ठाउँ जस्तो सोचेको नखोजेको ठाउँमा पनि पुगिरहेछ कि तपाईँहरूको केही यस्तो लामो काम गर्दा केही भन्नु सक्नुहुन्छ कि भनेर
West, especially country with a lot of money. म अमेरिकामा काम गर्दाखेरि एकजनाले भन्नुभएको थियो आर्ट इज अ बोर्जवा स्पेक्टेकल भनेर कि सो बोर्जवाजी कन्ट्रीहरूमा चाहिँ देखिन्छ गएको rather than other nations. अनि ट्र्याक हुने इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चरल लोकेसन्सहरू भने म्युजियममा कसैले डोनेट गरेर इट गोज थ्रु लट अफ अक्सन हाउसेस अनि few collectors.
Yes, please.
यसमा दुईटा क्वेसन एउटा चाहिँ यो इन्ट्रेस्ट कहिलेदेखि जेनेरेट भयो होइन र यो मैले पढाए अनुसार चाहिँ यो सिल्भियन लेभी जस्तो मान्छेले आएर लेखेर भ्याल्युबल भएको हो कि होइन भेरी सफर जस्तो मान्छेले लेखेर भ्याल्युबल भएको हो कि होइन कसले चाहिँ यसको एउटा प्रचार गर्छ र कसले चाहिँ त्यो इन्ट्रेस्ट जेनेरेट गर्छ जुनले चाहिँ यसको लागि एउटा मार्केट बनाउँछ होइन र यो कहिलेदेखि सुरु भएको होला
I could recommend you an article.
एम्बोडिज स्मिथ र
उहाँको छ त उहाँको रिबटल छ एउटा डक्टर पाल र भोटी म्याक्सवेल भोटीले लेख्नु भएको छ सो त्यो थम्सन र सिजापतिजीले लेख्नु भएको चाहिँ त्यो आर्ट मार्केट कसरी क्रिएट भयो अनि डिपेन्डेड अन द्याट वान एक्जिबिसन क्युरेटेड बाई स्टेला क्याम्बिस त्योभन्दा अगाडि पनि नेपालको मार्केट नट ओन्ली इन बोर्जवाजी वेस्टमा भन्दा पनि इन्डियाको थ्रु पनि सर्कुलेट भएको छ अनि द आर्टिकल इज टाइटल ग्रेट लिप्स फ्रम अनस्टेबल ग्राउन्ड अनि इट्स रिबटल फर त्यो आर्ट मार्केट जेनेरेट भएको आफ्टर द्याट स्टेला क्याम्बिस एक्जिबिसन इन 60s I guess so I could certainly give you the article.
त्यसमा चाहिँ के छ होला थोरै भन्थ्यो
थोरै भनेको चाहिँ सबै आर्ट्सहरू नेपालको चाहिँ इलिगली गएको छैन बिफोर 70s अरू आर्टहरू पनि गएको छन् त्यतिखेर कुनै लले एडमिनिस्ट्रेट गरेको थिएन कि त्यो इलिसिट हो भनेर अनि वेल प्रोभेनान्स आर्टहरू पनि छ अनि एको डक्टर पाल भनेर से दिस लाइक कुनै आर्टवर्क चाहिँ it should remain in the West, which are legally there, because it's like a silent ambassador for our country.
मेरो अर्को क्वेसन was नेपाली objects यो pre-19th 20th century so maybe Tibetमा छन् maybe Chinaमा छन् होइन त्यस्तो objectsहरूको चाहिँ अब what's the take?
So आर्टवर्कहरू मुभ भइराख्दाखेरि सर्टेन प्लेसेसमा पुग्यो सो एक्ज्याक्टली त्यो लिगली नै कन्स्टिट्युट गर्ने भने चाहिँ त्यो मेन लिगल टुल वी युज इज द्याट 1970 युनेस्को कन्भेन्सन अनि नेपालको एन्सियन्ट मोनुमेन्ट्स एक्ट द्याट्स रिजनेबल कि अब त्योभन्दा प्रायर गएको छ भने चाहिँ इट्स
अघि हजुरले एउटा आर्टिकल देखाउनु भएको थियो स्लाइडमा त्यसमा चाहिँ यो संसारको सङ्ग्रहालयमा भएको आर्टिफ्याक्ट्सहरू चाहिँ नेपालले फिर्ता लिएर आउन हतार गर्नु पर्दैन त्यसमा चाहिँ के थियो त्यो चाहिँ के भन्नु खोजेको नेपालसँग चाहिँ ट्रेजरहरूलाई चाहिँ राम्रोसँग प्रिजर्भ के भन्छ होइन त्यो गरेर राख्ने हाम्रो क्यापेसिटी चाहिँ अरू फरेन कन्ट्रीभन्दा कम्ती हो कि त्यस्तो खालको हिसाबले भन्न खोजेको हो कि त्यसमा
यो त्यसरी मैले यहाँ सेतो पार्टीलाई नै राख्दैछु इट्स नट माई स्टेटमेन्ट इट्स देयर स्टेटमेन्ट एन्ड यु कुड गो थ्रु द आर्टिकल एन्ड मेक योर ओन कन्क्लुजन्स
What is your statement on this?
We can discuss.
Opinion.
We can discuss that off record over a cup of cafe.
In general यस्तो छ, among historians there is a view जस्तो भनौँ न 19th century को सुरुमा चाहिँ यहाँ झन्डै 23 वर्ष बसेको ब्रिटिस पार्ट टाइम ब्रिटिस रेसिडेन्ट तर फुल रेसिडेन्ट पनि ब्रायन हड्सनले चाहिँ थुप्रै मनुस्क्रिप्ट्सहरू नेपालभन्दा बाहिर लग्यो होइन. सो लार्ज नम्बर अफ देम आर इन द ब्रिटिस लाइब्रेरी इन लन्डन. अब नेपाली हिस्टोरियन्सहरूको ठुलो जमातले चाहिँ त्यो सबै नेपाली ल्याउनुपर्छ भन्ने खालको भ्यू राख्छन्. तर कोही कोही नेपाली हिस्टोरियन्सहरू विथ हुम आई वर्क रियली क्लोजली उनीहरूको भ्यू चाहिँ के छ भने ब्रायन हड्सनले बाहिर त्यहाँ पठाएको हुनाले त अहिले त्यो हामीले पढ्न पायौँ भन्ने पनि छ कि. सो देयर इज भन्न खोजेको थिएँ कि ब्रायन यो जो मान्छेले त्यो जो मेरो कलिगले मलाई त्यो भन्यो उसले नेपालको आर्काइभ्समा टन्न काम गरेको मान्छे हो होइन. भनेको 10,000 भन्दा बढी डकुमेन्ट्सहरू पढेर पिएचडी थिसिस लेखेको मान्छेले भनेको कुरा हो. सो यो somebody sitting in a room भनेको होइन होइन. भन्न खोजेको के भन्दाखेरि त्यो 10,000 डकुमेन्ट्सहरू भेटाउनको लागि चाहिँ गरेको कष्ट उसले सम्झिएर एन्ड विथ द इज विथ विच ही कुड कन्सल्ट ब्रायन हड्सन्स कलेक्सन इन लन्डन कम्पेयर गरेर उसले भनेको. सो आई डोन्ट थिङ्क देयर इज वान भ्यू. अब पर्सनली त आजादजीले चाहिँ अलिक डिप्लोमेटिकली चाहेर भन्छु भनेर भन्नुभयो. बट इभन ओपनली पब्लिकली पनि आई थिङ्क देयर आर several views on where these artifacts or artifacts of यस्तो खालको cultural importance or historical knowledge को लागि कहाँ राख्ने भन्ने विषयमा I think several people hold different views होइन. अरूको छैन भने चाहिँ मेरो एउटा प्रश्न चाहिँ अब तपाईँको प्रेजेन्टेसनबाट तपाईँको फोकस चाहिँ रिपार्टिएसन पछि त्यसको स्टोरेज र फ्युचरमा हुने त्यसको पोसिबल एक्जिबिसनको लागि ल्याउन भन्ने कुरा क्लियर भयो होइन. But in the last several years, there's been, I don't know too much about it, so there's been a very, what we call them heritage activists, who've been working very hard to bring stuff back in. So, तपाईको focus त्यो भयो. So I imagine there are people in that large loose community who are probably researcher types. तपाईँ चाहिँ अब एक्जिबिसन कसरी गर्ने, यसलाई स्टोरेज कसरी गर्ने सोचिरहेको भयो. अनि त्यो रिसर्चर टाइप्सहरूले चाहिँ यो इटुम्बालमा हराएको र इटुम्बालमा फिर्ता आएको जुन लङ नम्बर अफ इयर्सको बिचमा चाहिँ यो तीनटा पौवाको एक्चुअल ट्राभलको बारेमा थप रिसर्च अहिले गरिसकेर भएको छ कि छैन, तपाईँले गर्न नचाहेको अथवा नसकेको भन्ने कुरा हामीले बुझ्यौँ कि तपाईँको प्रेजेन्टेसनबाट त्यो बुझ्यौँ. सो त्यो ग्रुपमा चाहिँ त्यसमा इन्ट्रेस्ट भएको सो द्याट when people then know publicly more details about the routes through which this traveled out of Nepal into some private collectors. About the $2.2 million भन्यो, I assume it was held by some private collector somewhere. अनि त्यो प्राइभेट कलेक्टरले म्युजियमलाई लोनमा डिस्प्लेको लागि दिँदाखेरि फर्चुअसली त्यो नेपाल सम्बन्धी बुझेको एउटा क्याटलगर दुईजनाले चाहिँ ठ्याक्क देखेर अनि त्यो होल प्रोसेस अफ रिपार्टिएसन सुरु भयो र त्यो नेपालमा आइपुग्यो त्यति कुरा बुझ्यो. सो मेरो क्वेसन चाहिँ आर देयर मेम्बर्स इन द्याट heritage activist group who are now doing research on the travel on the missing years भनौँ न.
I'm not one of the researchers.
तपाईँलाई थाहा छ के भनेर सोधेको त, तपाईँ होइन भन्ने कुरा त हामीले अघि नै बुझिसक्यौँ.
छन् होला.
ए ओके.
या हामी स्टोरेज र कसरी यसलाई समाएर राख्ने कुरा सोच्दैछौँ नि. अहिले सबै प्रोटोकलहरू वेस्टर्न प्रोटोकल फलो गर्दैछौँ. उनीहरूको 1400 सालदेखि अहिलेसम्म त बचाएर राखेकै थियो नि त 90 त्यो प्रोसेस बारे चाहिँ केही स्टडी गर्नु भएको छ.
सो मैले एउटा फोटो राखेको थिएँ होइन, तपाईँकै पोइन्टलाई अझै सप्लिमेन्ट गर्ने गरी दिस वान. सो द बटम राइटमा चाहिँ द्याट इज हाउ ट्रेडिसनल इट वाज केप्ट इन द्याट वुडन ट्युब है.
अनि सर फलो अप क्वेसन गोइङ फर्दर त्यो पुरानो कुराहरू ल्याउन सक्दैन. सो
त्यही त अनि त्यही कुरामा चाहिँ मेरो त कन्क्लुडिङ स्लाइडमा चाहिँ एन्टिनोमिजमै पर्छ त्यो अप्रोप्रिएट मेथड भर्सेस बेस्ट प्र्याक्टिस. सो आई थिङ्क इट्स अ वाइडर डिबेट. मैले यो भन्दा यो होइन भन्दाखेरि अस्ति Vijay Singh, who works in IOE, we had a good discussion. He said the appropriate practice may not be the best practice, And I put it forth with Anne Shafter, and she said the best practice might not be the appropriate practice. So it's a vice versa thing, and we have to find the middle ground. So ultimately, I think what is best for the artwork on the long run, त्यो चाहिँ माइन्डमा राखेर चाहिँ we have to design the storage facility, we have to decide on its display and all the other things. So we don't have to be rigid. We can work on it, but keeping in mind that on the long run, what's going to be more beneficial.
Just adding to that point, Azad again, the same point, research, the 22 missing years to research that's IU. So looking at what we've seen 500 plus 600 years, some of the preserved bio, and it was the research into time before it was stolen, but necessary take care, you know.
Sure.
Like, if it was preserved for 600 years, this way, maybe that is the best practice.
So yes, but however, त्यो चिनिया तामागरको फोटोहरुमा चाहिँ अलिकति signs of decay and discolorations चाहिँ देखिन्छ. So the assumption is that whoever held the artifact, the ball did some conservation work on it. So it's not like it's the present pristine condition was the ultimate condition. Case Chandra painting, we can see a mylar backing. Mylar is like a poly plastic thing which conservators use to protect it glass. So सबभन्दा delicate यही छ, but सबभन्दा well easy to handle, well managed and well kept पनि यही छ के, किनभने त्यो mylar backing. So त्यसैले we need expertise to work on art conservation. And we need the local opinion as well, and we have to somehow find the middle ground and navigate our course forward.
To my last question, यो अगाडिको जुन first पवामा त्यो दुईटा प्रिन्टरहरुको नाम छ नि, are these names that were already familiar, and have researchers actually written about these two characters?
I couldn't answer you, but Puna भन्ने चाहिँ it's like correlates with चित्रकार family. So त्यो भनेर चाहिँ छ. अनि this is only my speculations. Looking at the rendering of the hands, it looks like it might be from the same school. Artists, I'll tell you. Thank you.
Other questions? I'll just close the formal seminar today. So Azadjiलाई धन्यवाद यो प्रेजेन्टेसनको लागि. When and if the exhibition takes place in 2026, hopefully you'll send us an email saying, this is happening and we can all go and visit. So on Tuesday we have Karnalika Deoda Bhakako Buddhism. तीनजना देउडा आर्टिस्ट and सर्जकहरूले चाहिँ यहाँ प्रेजेन्टेसन गर्नुहुन्छ. Next week on Sunday we have literature को गुरुजी Dr. Ved Prasad Giri talking about thinking, lessons from philosophy, religion and cognitive science. Azadji, धन्यवाद.